Big title, big topic. 103 pages get secretly released. 300 pages of absolute horror released by the U.S. government, mind you. So I'm going to warn you now. Beware. This will disturb most viewers, and it should disturb most viewers. What does it have to do with? Triumvirate. Have you ever heard the term before? Caesar, Pompey, Crassus, all combined to seize control of Rome, to seize it from the Senate. And they were successful. And we're staring in the face of it again. The report on your screen, the weaponization of disinformation, pseudo-experts, and bureaucrats. How the federal government partnered with universities to censor America's political speech. Americans' political speech. 104 pages. When was this published? November 6th of 2023. This is not old news. This is brand new news. Most of you until today would never have even heard of. But that is the objective of exactly what we're about to disclose. I'll start with the opening paragraphs. Disinformation, think tanks and experts, government task forces, and university centers were formed, all to study and combat the alleged rise in alleged mis- and disinformation. As the House Committee on the Judiciary, all happening, mind you, in the summer of 2020. As the House Committee on the Judiciary and the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government have shown previously, these efforts to combat so-called foreign influence and misinformation quickly mutated to include domestic, that is, American speech. The First Amendment to the Constitution rightly limits the government's role in monitoring and censoring Americans' free speech. So if the government knows that, how do they avoid it? They do it by proxy. They do it by funding. 3 branches, 3 people. Triumvirate controls everything. In this case, the triumvirate is the U.S. government, the mainstream media, and think tanks or universities. Going deeper, the First Amendment to the Constitution rightly limits the government's role in monitoring and censoring Americans' speech, but these disinformation researchers, often funded, at least in part, by taxpayer dollars through the U.S. government, were not strictly bound by these constitutional guardrails. What the federal government could not do directly, it effectively outsourced to the newly emerging censorship industrial complex. I told you, my friends, beware. This will and should disturb almost every viewer of this video. Please help share it. This information is critical for each and every American to understand what's happening behind the scenes, now released by the U.S. government, at least one of the committees within it. Enter the Election Integrity Partnership, a consortium of disinformation academics, single quotes, led by Stanford University's Stanford Internet Observatory that work directly with the Department of Homeland Security and the Global Engagement Center, a multi-agency entity housed within the State Department to monitor and censor Americans' online speech. Again, this happened in the summer of 2020 at the request of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, C-I-S-A. The EIP provided a way for the federal government to launder its censorship activities in hopes of bypassing both the First Amendment and public scrutiny. And the most important finding we're going to cover is the Jira ticketing system, a software system used to create tickets to assist with project management, aka censoring your political speech. I ask you to hold on and beware again, because it doesn't get any better. But the information, absolutely critical to helping to understand how we can preserve our freedoms our very Constitution permits to us. Can't thank you enough for being here today. If you haven't subscribed to Lisa's channel, please take a few seconds to do that. It only takes a second or two. Make sure your bell is checked to all so you're alerted to upcoming broadcasts. You know we flip back and forth a little bit, so if you haven't gotten to my channel yet, please get over there today. Lisa will put a link above. Do the same. Subscribe. Make sure your bell is checked to all. Or, of course, if you want to see everything in one place, you know that place is restrictedrepublic.com. Don't know what you're waiting for if you haven't gotten there already. You're missing all the exclusive content, all the things that can only be and are only covered there at Restricted Republic. Right now, use discount code INDEPENDENCE, monthly checkout, $4 a month for 2 years plus 14 days for free. Look at the community page, look at the videos, look at the featured content. It will be the best investment, an investment in us you will make today. That's how you support us. And then also on our lighter-hearted platform, we launched a brand new video today. Here is, well, here's the thumbnail. I want you to get there today. Make sure you subscribe, 100% free. Enjoy this on us as a thank you for all you do. It's our escape from reality, and we're going to share that with you so you can escape this reality. But now, let's get back to this video. So we left off with the Jira software system, and we're going to quickly come back to it. Now, many candidates, shockingly, are actually running, let's read here, Will Rollins. He is pledging to push for greater censorship to stop these profiting by spreading division based on lies. Of course, the former assistant U.S. attorney suggests that he will know who is lying and who should be allowed to speak freely. You see, that's the problem. But now they're campaigning on it. So this is showing no signs of stopping. Let's get rid of all the stuff we don't like by calling it hate speech, and then whatever's left, that we can call free speech, but determined by whom exactly would be the question. Jonathan Turley, who you know I respect, I follow everything he writes, the inspiration behind this video, testified multiple times now in front of the House Select Subcommittee. The involvement cuts across the executive branch, he stated, with confirmed coordination with agencies ranging from the CDC to the CIA, even based on our limited knowledge. The size of the censorship system is breathtaking, and we only know a fraction of its operation through the Twitter files. Regardless of how one comes out on the constitutional ramifications of the government's role in the censorship system, there should be no debate over the dangers that it presents to our democracy. Now, him and I will disagree on using the term democracy, but we're going to skip by that for a minute. You know, it makes my skin crawl. The United States government may be outsourcing censorship, but the impact is still the free speech values that define our country. Oh, it's been defined, just not by us. Because this newest report outlines something entirely different, something absolutely horrific, a switchboard of censorship. The latest report reveals details of the critical role played by the government officials in switchboarding the censorship system by channeling demands for removal or bans from state and local officials, in addition to direct targeting of individuals by federal agencies. Switchboarding allows the agencies to operate as a control tower in this sprawling system, now nearly completely exposed. Now, remember, we only got a sliver of the information through Twitter. And what about Facebook? What about other monster platforms? Twitter is not the biggest. We're only seeing still a sliver of the actuality of this mechanism. The switchboard of censorship. Still can't believe we're even talking about it. But the secret report, which nobody wants to cover, Fox News touched on, reveal how government worked to censor Americans prior to 2020, Jim Jordan states. Detailed in the House panel's 103-page staff interim report, the emails and internal communication showed how the group, identified as the Election Integrity Partnership, I know Lisa's talked about this many times, it's why she's talked about it many times, it is absolutely critical to understand how it maneuvers, worked with the DHS Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to alert, suppress, and remove certain online speech in coordination with big tech companies. One such email, sent July 31st, 2020 by a top director at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, an EIP partner, described CISA's role in the censorship effort. I know the council has a number of efforts on broad policies, but we just set up an integrity partnership at the request of the DHS and CISA and are in weekly communications to debrief on disinformation wrote Graham Brookie, the lab's senior director. So when the government says they weren't involved, there is now so much in this record that states that they are. As this new information reveals, and this report outlines, the federal government and university pressured social media companies to censor true information, jokes, and political opinion. Now, before I read the end of that, just remember, how many of you know what this meme means? How many of you know this gentleman? How many of you know that this meme maker ended up being sentenced to prison for 7 months? Douglas Mackey, so you see this effort in action. This pressure was largely directed in a way that benefited one side of the political aisle, because this came into full force after the Biden administration was in place. So again, it benefited one side of the political aisle. True information posted by Republicans and conservatives was labeled as misinformation, while false information posted by Democrats and liberals was largely unreported and untouched by censors, according to this congressional report. The pseudoscience of disinformation is now, and has always been, nothing more than a political ruse most frequently targeted at communities and individuals holding views contrary to the prevailing narratives. That's why this should cross over both sides of the aisle. What happens if this apparatus still exists and Trump was to get in office? If you were a Democrat, you should be very concerned that the apparatus could be used against you. Just like Republicans are concerned that Democrats are using it against them. There's no side of the aisle that would be safe from this apparatus, because in our opinion, the apparatus shouldn't exist. It started out being targeted over foreign influence, and now, according to this report, is being targeted at Americans' free speech, and therein lies the issue. Remembering Brian Scully on the government response to disinformation sat within the report published on June 26th of 2023, the weaponization of the CISA. Within it, it states, we'll start with Jen Easterly, CISA's director. And she claimed in her March 28, 2023 testimony before Congress that we don't flag anything to social media organizations at all. We are focused on building resilience to foreign influence and disinformation. Despite Easterly's assurances, however, the DHS's Office of the Inspector General has reported that CISA began notifying social media platforms or appropriate law enforcement officials when voting-related disinformation appeared in social media as early as 2018. When deposed as part of the ongoing litigation in federal court, Brian Scully, the head of CISA's MDM team, confirmed that CISA had historically flagged disinformation to social media platforms in a process known as switchboarding. Scully further described switchboarding as a resource-intensive process whereby CISA officials received alleged misinformation reports and forward those reports to social media companies so that they could take enforcement measures against the reported content. Government intruding in freedom of speech, in this case, political freedom of speech. CISA's head, Jen Easterly, declared that her agency's mandate over critical infrastructure would be extended to include our cognitive infrastructure. That includes not just disinformation and misinformation, but combating malinformation, described as information based on fact, but used out of context to mislead, harm, or manipulate. That's a tough line to clarify, isn't it? I guess it would depend on the interpretation of the individual doing the interpreting. And that would depend, I guess, who is in power at that point. That's why this is a both side of the aisle issue. But how were they tracking this? How were they ticketing this? How were they switchboarding at Stanford Cyber Policy Center? Let's start there. Launching the Virality Project. Or we can start with what Microsoft did. Disinformation Incorporated, meet the groups hauling in cash to secretly blacklist conservative news. Or the State Department funding the Disinformation Index, targeting non-liberal and conservative news outlets. Or the U.S. government funding research tagged Americans for Twitter ban. You see, it didn't stop. It accelerated. It picked up pace. And how? How was it? Jira tickets, the main weapon in the EIP's censorship arsenal. That Jira software system used to create tickets to assist with project management, the EIP used Jira tickets to track and share misinformation reports with large social media companies, the government, and other parties. Here's an example of one such ticket. The main weapon in the EIP's censorship arsenal. They documented, they found, the think tanks found, they searched, they captured the web address, they put it into a ticket, sent it to the social media companies, and nicely requested that, well, that information, that could be malinformation, be taken away. On Stanford's Internet Observatory Cyber Policy Center website, it states, the global COVID-19 crisis has significantly shifted the landscape for mis- and disinformation, as the pandemic has become the primary concern of almost every nation on the planet. This has perhaps never happened before. Few topics have commanded and sustained attention at a global level simultaneously or provided such a wealth of opportunity for governments, economically motivated actors, and domestic activists alike to spread malign narratives in service to their own interest. In response to Stanford Internet Observatory is launching the Virality Project, a global study aimed at understanding the disinformation dynamics specific to the COVID-19 crisis, later extended beyond it. So if this was to be focused on COVID, then why is there discussions about the EIP scope of work? Documents produced by the committee and select subcommittee by both the SIO and other entities contain numerous examples of EIP analysis and staff making explicit recommendations to the platforms for specific enforcement issues. I will show you the appendix of 75 such tickets at the very end of this video. Multiple reports directly from the government to these agencies, or from the partners to the social media companies, and the committee here calls them out. Stanford's initial efforts to unlawfully misrepresent and withhold Jira data. Now, many of you remember Matt, right? He exposed so much of this through his Twitter files. Thankfully, innocent Americans got swept up in shoddy U.S. government-funded research aimed at getting Twitter users banned for allegedly spreading foreign disinformation. The latest in the Twitter files reported. You see how this is all linked together? This is an ongoing saga. The flawed work was the product of the Global Engagement Center, which was created in 2016 by the State Department, but worked with the FBI, CIA, U.S. Strategic Command, and other agencies, Matt stated in the 17th installment of the series. How the Biden administration has quietly helped to score conservative speech. We might as well be in China, because that's no different than their social credit score. State Department funds disinformation index targeting non-liberal and conservative news outlets. China's social credit score ranks its citizens, punishes them with throttled internet, bans them from traveling, and a multitude of other things because the Chinese government deems them untrustworthy. How did the two systems differ? The Global Disinformation Index targeted 10 conservative and libertarian sites as the most dangerous sources of disinformation, including sites like Reason, which publishes conservative legal analysis. Conversely, some of the most liberal sites were ranked as the most trustworthy for advertisers. Most of America thought they were just being made privy to the information with the Orwellian Ministry of Truth, but you see the mechanism already existed. The switchboard already existed. And this report on switchboarding that we've now reviewed is the most chilling when placed within a larger context. The Biden administration has funded a global effort to score, target, and ban opposing views through an ever-increasing array of allied groups in academia and corporations. A federal court recently enjoined aspects of that system after finding that it is an unprecedented censorship system that effectively created a type of Orwellian Ministry of Truth. You see, it already created the very thing that the government created and then may go defunct to say, hey, see, we got rid of it. But it was already there. And it was all after President Biden's inauguration in January of 2021. And the minute the Republicans seized control of the House, CISA scrubbed its website of any references to domestic censorship. And hence why many of the plaintiffs in Missouri versus Biden, the case we've covered for you, have attained significant victories before a federal district court and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, and now will have their case heard by the Supreme Court. And I cannot wait, because there's no way this stands in the Supreme Court. It can't. If it does, then the Constitution is null and void. And if you don't believe me, here's the multiple tickets that went through the switchboard in Appendix 1 of the 104-page secret government report that nobody wants to cover because it is so. We recommend taking the same action on the new ad. Huckabee has not said whether the tweet was a joke. We recommend that Twitter labels the post with the proper information. We recommend label it accordingly. We recommend to Twitter that the tweets be removed. We recommend removing the following tweets as misleading. And it goes on and on and on. The solution should be obvious to everyone. Congress must bar any funding, any support, direct or indirect, for censorship systems that can't exist. They can't be involved with the government. Calling opposing views disinformation does not alter the fact that there is a comprehensive censorship system using the groups allied with the government. Federal agencies are always able to respond to claims that they deem are untrue about their own policy and programs. However, we need to get the government out of the business of speech controls, including shutting down the censorship switchboard. Mr. Turley, my hat is off to you again. You have done a fantastic job shining light and information on something that every American needs to know. I am only doing my small part to help spread that incredible information. Now, my friends, very important, before you go, I need you to go to lisahavengold.com. There she is. Noble Gold Investments. What an amazing company, amazing sponsor. Again, lisahavengold.com. Geopolitical tensions absolutely on the rise. Inflation is raging despite what they say. Stocks are sinking, debt is rising, and your own financial future isn't looking too clever. Yet gold endures every crisis. Wars, disasters, no calamity has beaten gold. While paper assets crash and burn, gold endures every time. Get a free 5-ounce America the Beautiful coin when you open an IRA with Noble Gold Investments today. There we go. I got the reflection off of it. Again, that is Lisa Haven Gold. Go there. Shield your savings with Noble Gold Investments. Go to Lisa Haven Gold now. It's the only gold company we trust. Now, I can't thank you all enough for being here. Hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Really look forward to your comments. Can't wait to see them. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.